Just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your dog life journey.
Okay, well, I was born Michael Stratten. That's who my mother named me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the dog world, I was given the name Gypsy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to, you remember Jimi Hendrix and the band of Gypsies?
Yes.
Okay, I used to wear a bandana and had the philosophy that my bandana was my flag, and wherever I stood was my land or my country.
Mm-hmm.
And so I traveled a lot in Chicago, especially. When I started, there were places where a young black man was not welcome. I guess that might still be true, but back in those days, it was really true. And so I didn't care. I'd get on the bus or get a ride and go across town, go into areas where guys didn't go a lot. And so that's why I got that name.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go back, though, because I think my wife told me you wanted to know how I got started with dogs.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, my mother, being a single mother, we always had a dog. And I thought it was for hugs and kisses when I was a little kid, but there was an incident where someone tried to break into our apartment, and we had a dog, what was his name, Bobby? And Bobby was a Shepherd Collie mix. And like I said, I thought it was all about hugs and kisses and wagging tails. But Bobby saved us that day by getting between my mom and myself and this bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I actually realized the value of a dog.
Right.
In a moment where we were surely about to be hurt or harmed, it was Bobby, who had never had any formal training, who saved us and fought that guy coming through the window, and we won that day because of Bobby. So that's when I realized the value of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So as I grew up, my father was very close friends with a guy named Earl Jones. My dad bred Dobermans. Earl Jones was a premier dog trainer in that day. So I tried to go to the military in order to get the training for dog training, and I had a physical situation that would not allow it, so my dad took me to Earl.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was depressed and sad and mad, who is this guy that he's going to teach me what the military was going to do? But I went and I apprenticed under Earl for about a year and a half, and that was in, I believe it was 72 and 73. 1972, 1973. And that is actually where I met Scorp. Scorp walked in one day. Let me go back to Earl Jones.
Hold on, let me cut you in right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
This is Lori Berg Stratten talking now. I try to get my minute in when I can.
Yeah, no doubt.
I want to just tell you that I've been blessed with dogs all my life. My grandpa bred Dalmatians. We always had puppies, and you'd always find Lori wherever the puppies were. When I got a little older, about 10, my brother Mike came home with a Doberman and told my father not to let Lori near the Doberman because he is a guard dog. Well, my brother came home. He found me and the Doberman playing Barbie dolls. So my journey started there. My fascination for big dogs just continued on.
Right.
My paying job was in the nursing field until I met Michael.
Gypsy.
And because I had a problem dog, and they told me, you need to see this dog trainer named Gypsy, and he can help you out. And sure enough, that's how it all started.
Yes, I fell in love.
Right?
And not with my dog.
There you go. That's awesome.
Okay, so where can we go from
Okay,
here?
let's go back to Earl Jones, because this is important.
Definitely.
Earl Jones trained dogs for penitentiary system in Florida before he came to Chicago. His primary appeal to me was the fact that he was teaching defense, where in the dog world at that time, and even more today, people were involved with prey, pursuit, and apprehension. And so that's what made me really want to be taught by Earl, because as I told you, Bobby has shown me the value of the defense that a dog can add to your home, to your family. So I never wanted to train dogs for the police, for sport, because most of that was about prey and apprehension. And so I got on the road to defense with Earl Jones. So let me go back to meeting Scorp. Scorp walked into Earl's school with a female German Shepherd. Her name was, what was her name?
I can't remember right now.
Aries. That was her name, Aries. And Scorp was, he was a big guy, muscles and huge, a mountain of a man, and very imposing, and kind of arrogant. And so him and Earl clashed immediately because Earl was a really arrogant guy also. But I was interested. Scorp was an interesting person. And so, of course, Earl rejected Scorp and wouldn't take him on to train him. Scorp was an excellent handler, though, at that time. Excellent, out of this world handler. So when Scorp was leaving, I told him, I said, hey, you know what? I get off at, I guess it was 4 or 5, and we can hook up, and I'll teach you what I learned as I learn it. And so that's how our relationship started. But Scorp, the thing about Aries, Scorp would put her on a tree. He'd tell her to get a tree, and she'd tear the tree up, a bush. He'd shake that bush and say, get it, and she would attack the bush. So that was like, wow, man. I was like, I have never seen anything like that before. So, but it wasn't scientific. And Earl was purely scientific. He had me read a lot. I remember reading The Animal Mind. That was like a Bible. And in that, and also Kohler. He also introduced me to Kohler. And it was all about defense and the psychology of defense. And so that's how it started. So what's the next question? I'm sorry. If I ramble, you just got to tell me. And
No. I mean, when I ask, I want you guys to talk. I don't need to ask all my questions. You just get your story out. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's.
So Scorp and I became friends. We started training dogs. Aries is the mother of Jaws. Jaws is a Hall of Fame German Shepherd. Jaws' daddy was Midnight. Scorp's brother, who was a preacher, owned Midnight. Huge black German Shepherd. Jaws, though, again, was a Hall of Fame dog, and I trained Jaws from beginning to end. And so it was all about defense all the time. That's one of my, what do you call them? Wait a minute. Golden rule.
Mm-hmm.
All defense all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at this list, so let me give it to you. Number one is the best bite is no bite. Now, I've had arguments with dog trainers all over the world based on them not being able to understand that the best bite is no bite. But the police will tell you the best, it's better not to shoot your gun if you don't have to.
Right.
It's better not to use force or deadly force if you don't have to. You have to show your willingness to do a thing, but if you don't have to do it, that is always the better outcome. And so I believe that the best bite is no bite. After that is safety first. And if you want to ask me anything about these, I'll stop and answer specifically. The next one is safety first. And after that is no means no. And that, to me, is the most important of all concepts. No means stop doing what you're doing right now. Mm-hmm. If it's in the garbage or about to pee on my chair or deployment in an attack or about to bite, if I say no, that means stop it. And so that is very important. After that is a dog needs a master. I don't believe, as much as I love dogs, I'm not their father. I have a son who's going to have, who has a daughter who is my granddaughter, who's going to carry my genetics and my name into her children. And so a dog, and I believe, hopefully, my son and I and my granddaughter will go to heaven. I do not believe that dogs are our children. Mm-hmm. So I believe that a dog needs a master. A dog with a master is a much happier dog than a dog who doesn't have one or will not accept one. They usually end up in the animal control or some shelter. And so if you, as a dog owner, strive to be its master, then you are more likely to be able to have that dog for the entirety of its life. Next after that is secure your dog. That a person with a dog who is a protector and who has the ability, whether it's trained to or whether it's natural, ability to inflict physical harm, needs to be secured. You don't let out a dog in a neighborhood because you don't want to put your slippers on and take him to the backyard. And you just let him out the front door and he runs the neighborhood. That's not securing your animal. Mm-hmm. After that is my most famous one, and that is all defense all the time. No prey. I do not use prey. I have never used prey. I will not use prey to teach a dog to defend. They are counter to each other. The other one is prevention is better than apprehension. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not interested in chasing guys down the block, around the corner, down the alley. I'm interested in my dog changing your mind. Right. If you come to my home, I want my dog to prevent the situation and not have to apprehend anyone. Because when I started, it was in densely populated areas. And a dog chasing somebody is a danger. Right. Plus, you're not the police. You do not have the powers that police have, but you do have the power to defend your home and your family. Right. So the other one is look good and act right. And we'll get back to that. That is my father's rule. And it is that you want a dog that looks good, that makes you proud of how he looks, and his behavior. is something that you can count on and believe in and be proud of. So looking good and acting right. The other is the pedestrian has the right of way. And it should say the pedestrian always has the right of way, because I don't believe in making people get off the sidewalk because I'm walking my dog. That you got to walk in the street because I'm walking my dog down the block. I think a person with a dog that they know could hurt someone should give the pedestrian the right of way. You step aside. You step off the sidewalk. Those are things. And then I'm almost to the end.
No. Take your time. Yeah.
Then it's, don't gamble with what you cannot replace. And I tell people this all the time when it comes to, especially in cities where there are leash laws, where people want to show off that, oh, my dog is trained, so they don't have them on lead, and so they're gambling. I also tell people, if your dog doesn't live with children, don't subject children to your dog. Because you are gambling. You are, what we used to say is you're guinea pigging. Right. You're waiting to see if your dog, how he's going to act. That is a gamble. Mm-hmm. You don't gamble with what you can't replace, because no matter how many times you say I'm sorry, it doesn't replace the harm that your animal could cause. And just because they do it doesn't mean they know it. And a lot of trainers fall into the trap that because the dog did a thing, it knows a thing. Repetition and reinforcement is where dogs learn to know a thing, not just to do a thing because they're compelled by a collar or a method of training. Mm-hmm. And the last one is 1 man plus 1 dog equals 3 men. A dog that is all about defending you can overcome the odds, so to speak. That goes back to my mom and I and Bobby, the shepherd mix, standing in the way to protect us. My wife is saying, hurry up and talk about the Canis Panther.
No, that's good. I want to hear all the background too. It's really important.
Okay, man.
Because what I've heard is just all secondhand, so it's awesome to hear it from straight from the originators.
Yes. So I must say though, the Scorp believed every one of these rules. Lucas Lopez, let me say his name. Because many people don't. Lucas, to me, before my wife, is the person who actually stabilized and maintained the breed. Mm-hmm. Because his only focus was in breeding. Whereas Scorp was a handler, a breeder, a trainer. He had lots of different hats. And so he couldn't concentrate on all aspects. And Luke, as I look back, is the person who actually solidified and maintained the breed. Mm-hmm. So I have been a trainer all these years, and that was my contribution. I have trained. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
I have trained more Canis Panthers than any other human being in the history of human beings. Mm-hmm. And there is no doubt about that, because of the amount of years and the level of training and the amount of dogs, Canis Panthers, that I have trained for myself, for my wife, for Scorp, and for very many other people. So, Scorp had a dog named Gorilla that I was training, or did train, And I think we're going to be able to find a photograph of Scorp, Gorilla, and myself are in the same frame. If so, we could forward it to you.
Yes.
Gorilla then bred to a very large black Doberman female. So that was the origin. The origin was, there are 4 components that went into making this dog. I always say this is not a mixed breed dog. A mixed breed dog is a shepherd bred to a collie, or a husky bred to a pit bull or a golden retriever. That's a mixed breed dog. The Canis Panther is not a mixed breed dog. It is a blended dog where 4 breeds went into the making of this breed. Great Dane, Black Doberman, Black Lab, and then added at the end was Staff, Black Staff.
Great Dane, you forgot.
Oh, I said Dane in the beginning.
Oh.
So that's the blend. 2 gun dogs and 2 terriers. The Doberman is a terrier, and the Staff is a terrier. The Dane, a gun dog, and the Lab, more famously, a gun dog. Now, this didn't just happen by accident. As a matter of fact, back in our training days, Scorp had family that was in Germany, and we wanted to import Rottweilers. But it turned into a lot of money, and we didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
And so the Rottweiler people at that time didn't necessarily want to sell their better dogs to, again, young black men. That's just the way it was. And so we sat around and talked a lot and came up with, well, then let's make a dog. So let me tell you where the Canis Panther was made. It was in Inglewood. Are you familiar with the community of Inglewood in Chicago on the south side?
No, I'm not.
Well, it is a hellhole.
Right.
And it has always been. And a lot of good people lived there. And was always fearful of rowdies, gang bangers, poor neighborhood, and so subsequently there was crime, break-ins and intimidation, and so we wanted a dog that could combat those aspects of the environment, but also we didn't know about the Malinois then, but we didn't want to make the Malinois. Well, we didn't want to make a fighting dog. We wanted to make a dog that was a wonderful pet and a terrific defender, and that would be its nature, with training or no training. And Scorp's mother was really our test case, because not only did Scorp have small children, but his grandma, he had so many brothers and sisters that his mother was like the old lady who lived in a shoe. Had so many children, didn't know what to do. So you could not put an alligator in that household and depend on it not to hurt the babies. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah. An alligator is an indiscriminate biter. He's going to bite everybody that he gets close to, or if he gets upset, he's going to turn around and snatch somebody and tear them up. You can't have a dog with good conscience that's going to that can't be trusted in a household with older people or children. You have to have a dog that has an even temperament. Now, I don't know if we were genius or just lucky or blessed that the Panther actually turned out to be that kind of animal. Not only then, But even now that we get to the now part of this story, I want to give my wife the lion's share of the, what do you call that? What do you call it? When you're saying something good about somebody. Oh, I don't say a lot of good about people. I don't even know what it's called. But she deserves
the props.
Mantle, the props.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She gets the props for, Scorpio used to tell her, you're the first white person that's ever had these dogs in your hands. Not as far as buying, but as far as breeding. Having some responsibility for the breed. My wife has not only has she maintained the breed standards, but she has bred so well that the temperament today is better than it was when Scorp and Lucas Lopez were in charge of the breeding. I have contributed because of my knowledge of the first Canis Panthers and my training of so many for so many years that I know, and of course I know the proportions, how many does, how many dames, how many labs, how many staffs. So people who want to now try to recreate it, they don't know that balance.
Right.
And I'm not about to tell them that balance.
Right.
I like that my wife is supreme amongst people who breed the Canis Panther. I like that. And I'm not going to relinquish that knowledge so that other people can challenge her.
One day when they read your book.
Well, okay, when I read a book. I mean, when I write a book. Sure. Okay, I got so much work to do. Somebody else will have to write that. So the breed stand. So let me say this. It's so important. Because this is a rare breed, people get impatient. They don't want to buy another dog. They don't like us or me, who cannot like my wife. She was a wonderful person.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Not so much. I don't have time for BS. Dog training is too important for me to tolerate foolishness. I don't do it. I never have. That's why I don't have a lot of friends. She has done so much to not only preserve the breed. Oh, so back to people who don't have the patience or don't want to get another dog. There's people out in California who have Canis Panther and decided to put Corso into Canis Panther and call that a Canis Panther. It's not in the genetic blueprint. It is not the same level of temperament and defensive ability. So that is not a Canis Panther. I am not against these people, but I cannot co-sign their dog because it is not. If you put
Shepherd and a poodle.
It's just not.
No longer a shepherd. It's now a mixed breed, so it's shepherd and poodle.
So that's one sore spot I have. I don't mind that they do it. They're free to do that. This is America. But I don't want them to
call it what it
fool
is.
the public into believing that I put what's that dog that saves people that the priest used to use with the big head? What is that dog?
St. Bernard?
St. Bernard. The band dog people have mixed these Molossers to create what they call a band dog. But you can't get the same thing. Every time you breed, it is a different dog that appears.
Right.
The Panther is not that. Many years, lots of work and thought have gone into the breeding of the Canis Panther in order to maintain the breed standard and the breed temperament.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to me.
It is. The breed is fully developed with established bloodlines, multi-generation pedigrees. We don't see the need to add anything else into the Canis Panther.
I just wouldn't.
Right.
Because the dog is freaking phenomenal. You can close your eyes and pick one out of the bunch, and you're going to have a wonderful companion and a real protector. The Canis Panther does not cozy up to strangers readily. I always say to people, get a Canis Panther, and they're going to check IDs of people who come to your house.
Right.
I don't care if it's Santa Claus, I don't care if it's Mother Teresa, I don't care who it is, the Panther is going to alert you and challenge that individual. And that is important. Those are the building blocks of protection. Mm-hmm. Alarm, challenge, threat display, and engagement. That's how defense works. And the Canis Panther has a willingness and a strength when it comes to those aspects of a dog that is defending your self and your home.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another thing, when you put Corsos and all these other breeds, you start to get what's that called with the stripes? What is it? Brindle. There's no brindle in the Canis Panther. Mm-hmm. Not gonna happen. If you get a Canis Panther and it's a brindle, it ain't a Canis Panther, because it's not in the genetic makeup of the dog to produce that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's black, chocolate, buckskin, blue. You also have black and tan, and that appears because of the level of Dobermans that Lucas Lopez used in the making and in the history in the development of this breed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll be honest with you. I have always, okay, I'll tell you why. I'll give you one secret here. My wife looks over at me like, wait a minute. I'll give you one secret here.
Uh-huh.
The reason that the staff was used, and it was the last one used, was because these big dogs started to develop bone issues, skeletal problems. And so Scorp, it was his idea to use the staff to tighten it up. I have to admit, once he did that, it tightened up, and it is held throughout the history of this breed. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of occurrences of, what is that you're saying?
I was just saying that.
We don't have a lot of occurrences of hip problems,
mm-hmm.
bad elbows, things of that nature. But pit bull or staff is not an animal that I would push heavily into the Canis Panther going forward. We like to look for, and I'll have to declare something here. We like to look for the breed standard. We had a dog that's probably one of the most famous of all Canis Panthers, and because of her ability to work, her mind, her beauty, and that's Ruby. Ruby is not standard. She's, in my opinion, was not the standard that we were looking for. So, because she was shorter mm-hmm. than the normal height, when you looked at her, people look at her and thought, oh boy, I see some pit bull there. But she was the most brilliant Panthers to this date.
Mm-hmm.
And so secretly, we're always looking for Ruby. Secretly, we're always looking for her. As a matter of fact, one of my wife's favorites is Daenerys, who looks more like Ruby than we have seen in a lot of
in years.
In years. So of course she's a favorite, but if she didn't have the mental, then she would not be. She and the kindness aspect, then she wouldn't be. We are not looking for hyper aggressive animals, because my favorite person or client is the church lady. It's not the dope dealer. It's not the gangbanger. It's not the trouble seeker. It's not the paramilitary guy. It's not the neighborhood watch guy. It's not the sport guy. All of these people want to project some type of power that they have. My favorite person, the person we breed this dog for, is the person I call the church lady. And it doesn't matter what the religion is, it's the profile. Church lady doesn't want to hurt anyone. The church lady is a good citizen. But when the bad guy arrives, the church lady calls down the wrath of God upon your ass. Okay?
That's awesome.
And so that's what it's all about.
Right.
And that's why we're not, I don't want to see a Canis Panther in every yard. I just don't. That's what brought the Doberman down. That's what brought the Rottweiler down.
Right.
They're just now getting back to starting to produce a strong enough mentally and emotionally and physically dog.
Right.
They ruined it because of overbreeding and the hypersaturation in communities. Everybody on the block's got a dog, or everybody on the block's got a rot. So indiscriminate breeding started happening.
Yeah.
Because people are not breeders.
No.
People are not trainers. They're dog owners.
Right.
But they want to take everybody will tell you, oh, I'm a dog trainer. No, you're not. You haven't trained nothing.
Right.
You know, you've had a few dogs your whole life. You're not a dog trainer. Or they want to take the mantle of being a breeder. But you have to be discriminate. You have to discriminate if you're going to be a reputable breeder. And so that's why I don't want them in everybody's yard. Sure, everybody would like to. We're old. We'd like to build up a big bank account, a big bag of money. But that's not what it's about. You have to. So that's why we don't want to. I don't anyway. I do not want a Canis Panther in every yard. But I think every church lady could use one.
Right.
I do believe that. So basically, I know I talk a lot. I don't get a chance to talk to many people, and I guess that's why I'm talking so much. Anything else you want to ask me?
No, I love it, man. I appreciate everything you've been saying. It's awesome. It's going to go over well. I guess one of the questions that popped in my head was mainly because I interviewed David Levitt, who created the first Old English Bulldog. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
One of the regrets he said was not trademarking the name Old English Bulldog, because now everybody under the sun says they have Old English, but it was not exactly what he had in mind, and it's not exactly the formula that he created.
Right.
And by all accounts, in my opinion, he does still to this day have the best Old English Bulldogs, the healthiest, the most well-adjusted, etc. So how do you...
The same as Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah.
How do you go about? I mean, how do you deal with somebody like in California?
Well, in the beginning, we tried that or explored the trademarking, and we were told that you cannot trademark a breed of dog.
Okay.
So we gave up on that.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to your question, how do we deal with these people? We do not actively, aggressively denounce anyone. We don't have time for that.
Right.
I'm not trying to make friends. That's not why we don't do it. We don't do it because we have the real deal. We have the real goods.
Mm-hmm.
So when people want to fudge things, I always say, well, let's just see what that looks like in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just see what that looks like in a couple of generations.
Or let's see what they have done. You go to the internet, and everything that everyone sees from around the world has come from Rock of Ages Kennel.
That's true.
Every picture out there that people look
We're
at.
the first to register the breed, the first to show the breed, and we have shown more and done more with Canis Panthers than anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't get hung up on a person anywhere. What I'll ask them is, well, where did you get your Canis Panther? Now, if they say Rock of Ages Kennel, then I'll have to say, okay, I'll have to back that dog. But where did you breed it to? Where'd you get that dog?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't tell me a name that I know has Canis Panthers, then I'm not going to co-sign for them.
Right.
I'm going to say, well, that dog that you named, I'm aware of, and I will say that's one of my dogs, or that's a good dog. I know where it came from. And so that's how I guess we approach it. We wait for somebody to make the terrible mistake of challenging us.
Right.
And if they do, then I will break their back, so to speak, because it's a serious matter. We've done a lot of work.
We do.
We've
do a lot of work.
invested a lot of our lives
24/7
into this breed. And so as long as you don't try to discredit me, I will leave you alone. I will not, however, co-sign if you can't answer specific questions, and mainly that is, where did your dog come from?
Ruby, the most famous Canis Panther of all.
Well, yeah, she's probably the best, but the most famous is Chief Little Dog.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Chief Little Dog also, and we'll definitely give you some pictures of him. He was outstanding.
Super.
I mean,
and
some video clips,
yeah.
you'll just go crazy to see this boy.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So yeah, as far as other people are concerned, only when somebody will ask us about them, we're going to give you the same answer we would give anyone else. Well, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, see, we don't believe in overbreeding.
Right.
My wife is a real stickler, man. She ain't playing.
Right.
She wants a dog to be 2 years old. She wants to have observed that animal for at least that amount of time as far as its physical ability, because she won't breed a dog that she wouldn't buy.
Right.
She wouldn't sell a dog to somebody that she herself would not buy. So I don't think other people hold themselves to that. So people get, they might have bought a dog a year ago and they want to buy another one right away. And my wife was like, well, we're not breeding right away. We don't breed every dog that comes in heat, every time they come in heat. And so people get frustrated or impatient. Mm-hmm. And so they say, well, then I'm going to go on and make my own. I'm going to put this dog that lives down the road into my Canis Panther, and I'm going to call it a Canis Panther. Well, that's just not real. It's not good. But we cannot control what other people do.
Right.
I can't go to their house and say, you must stop this. No. What we can do is continue to be excellent, continue to be responsible, continue to be discriminating when we breed. And that's what we can do. That's what we can control. And we don't want to waste our brain cells trying to control other people and their behavior.
Right. No, I appreciate that mindset. Now, that brings up a question that I do have, because I'm interested in the process as much as I am everything else. Is what makes you decide? What do you look for in a specific breeding? What are your decisions to go ahead and go for a breeding?
It goes back to my father's whole rule: looking good, acting right. If a dog looks great, but he's a knucklehead, if he looks great, but he's a crackhead, then that's not a dog we want to breed.
Right.
If a dog is brilliant, but all his feet turn in different directions, that's not a dog we want to breed. So that's the criteria: looking good, acting right. They have to be breed standard. Even black and tan that come out, they have to be breed standard, and they have to have the mental and emotional capability. They have to have temperament, whereas when you buy a puppy, you take it home, we feel good that it's going to take care of you and your children and your wife. That your wife is not going to be afraid of the dog because it's a damn alligator. And because if she's afraid of her own dog, she won't use it when she needs it.
Right.
And grandma is not going to love us and pray for us if our dog chews up her kids and her grandkids. You follow me?
I hear you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better to me than a smart dog.
Yeah.
I love an intelligent animal.
Yeah, she really likes a smart dog.
Yeah, that goes a long way.
These guys are smart. They're fun.
Right.
They're silly. They have great personalities.
And they love their people.
And
that's
they
the
love
biggest
their
thing,
staff.
man. They love their people. You got to peel them off here.
And I tell people I sleep real good at night.
No, that's the truth.
Right.
I don't worry. One of the biggest fears women have is when we take a shower, no one else is home, we're in the shower.
Right.
We turn the water off a few times because we're like, did we hear something?
Right.
Something out there?
Yeah.
Canis Panther at your door?
That's not going to happen.
Shower. Nice
Nobody, and nobody's going to sneak up on you with a Canis Panther. Not even a ninja.
Yeah, right.
That's right. See, there's a lot of dogs, man, that sleep so hard. A lot of big-head dogs, especially Corsos and
right.
And the Ruts and the Bulldogs, they sleep so damn hard
Yeah.
that if I just don't knock something over, I can get past them without waking them up.
Right. No, that's for sure.
But the Canis Panther is a vigilant animal. You can't put a garbage can. If I put a tire, if I put a tire in my yard, it wasn't there yesterday, believe me, that tire is going to get challenged.
Right.
Yeah. And if it's something out of place, they're going to know it.
Yeah.
And they're going to get hot about it. Yeah. So
And you brought up
what I love about it.
you brought up a good.
And nobody's going to steal your Canis Panther.
Right.
Now, you can make the mistake of forcing your dog to kiss and hug everybody in the neighborhood, but if you don't, if you just socialize your dog to your family, even a puppy is not going to get stolen because they're not going to trust a stranger. And that is back in the hood, back in Inglewood. That was a huge component because stealing dogs, not just on the south side of Chicago, but everywhere.
Yeah.
Stealing dogs is an easy thing.
Yep.
And if you got a ball or you baby talk to them, you can get them to the gate. You're not going to get a Canis Panther to come to you. I got people do it all the time. I stand on the porch and say, oh, that dog ain't going to come to you. A puppy. Even I'm talking puppies.
Right.
So that's their nature, and we don't want to change that nature. We're not interested in being politically correct to the point that my dog just loves everybody because everybody comes to your house ain't right.
See, this dog is calm before this happens. He knows that this is going to happen. Oh, yeah. He's going to take care of everybody. Gunfire, weapons, the whole 9 yards. Now, in the suit, the range of motion is restricted, so you can't get a lot of natural range of motion. Melvin brought this up earlier, that we tried to, there you go.
And doesn't seem like
boy.
he is at all relenting under the threat of that club.
No, absolutely not.
The
That
agitated
actually, the way that we train, because we're not as brutal as some people think, we like to introduce the weapon early in a dog's training so that he's not afraid. Listen, every mammal on this earth is afraid of a human being with something in his hand, from monkeys to...
No, dog. Come with me. No. Come with me. No. No, not yet. Not yet. No. Get. Good boy. Good boy. Dog. No. Come. Come. Get. Good boy. Good boy. All right, dog. No. Hey. Come on. Come on. Damn. Good boy. All right. Chief. Come. Chief.
I did. I honestly.
Get him! Good boy, get him! Get him! Get him! Oh! Get him! Come! Chief! Get this man! Get him! Tie him up! Good boy, Chief! No! Hey! Let's go! Come on! Come with me. No! No, not yet. Not yet.